Today, we debut a special edition of Louisiana Speaks. Throughout the month of July, we'll focus on important health issues confronting Louisiana. We're calling it Life Pulse, and each week we'll be joined by medical doctor Rani Whitfield to share his insight and expertise. This week, our focus is on Cancer Alley, as some of Louisiana's leaders, including Governor Jeff Landry, are again siding with the state's chemical industry in a fight over highly dangerous chemical emissions. In a press conference, the governor accused President Biden and the EPA of risking jobs by implementing stricter rules on the release of cancer-causing carcinogens. All of this comes as new scientific research indicates that health risks to people living in so-called Cancer Alley are more severe than previously known. Dr. Whitfield shares his views on the potential implications to public health. In this episode of Life Pulse, we turn our attention to Cancer Alley, which is back in the news. I'm joined by Dr. Rani Whitfield, aka Hip Hop Doc, social media sensation, medical expert. Cancer Alley. So, Dr. Rani, recently we've seen headlines. Number one, a study released by Johns Hopkins University found that toxic emissions levels in Cancer Alley are much higher than EPA's original estimates and monitoring stats. Governor Jeff Landry held a press conference essentially pushing back on an EPA rule that was supposed to take effect July 15th, asking the Denka petrochemical plant to reduce its toxic emissions. Governor Landry saying, no, I want to give the petrochemical plant more time. Cancer Alley, back in the news. Yeah. Let's start with the first question. For the uninitiated, what is Cancer Alley?
Cancer Alley is a 85-mile stretch from Baton Rouge to New Orleans, or New Orleans to Baton Rouge, however you want to look at it, that is densely populated with petrochemical companies, some parishes more than others. And so in that area, there's been reports of levels of cancer in the citizens that live there 50 times higher than other places around the country. In a Johns Hopkins study, maybe more. And so it's a huge concern for physicians, especially those that live in those areas, because some of those folks don't have access to health care. And so we're having high rates of cancer. Some people think that it's a myth. But as you said, the studies have proven different. So
we have data, and data doesn't lie. There's a tumor registry. Right. What does the data show?
The data shows, well, interestingly, a couple of years ago, the tumor registry was only compiling data at the hospital and not necessarily saying that this was the particular zip code or area where that person came from that had the potential cancers. And so the data is not really adding up, but we do have data that shows that individuals that lived in what we call Cancer Alley are dying from cancers and having respiratory problems as well, COPD and asthma, other potentially related health disorders. So the tumor registry is it's kind of a catch-22 because we don't have information from the area per se, but we do know that people that live in that area, and if you talk to the individuals that live in Cancer Alley in St. James Parish, will tell you that there's 127 people on my street who died from cancer. So we need to find a way to make those streets meet up.
So when we talk about toxic emissions, what are some of the pollutants in the air in Cancer Alley that's creating and perpetuating this disease?
There are known carcinogens that are being produced from these petrochemicals and these refineries. Benzene, chloroprene, which comes from the Denka plant, and I think they're the largest producer of chloroprene in the country, right there in the river parishes. Ethylene oxide, formaldehyde, all known carcinogens that have been found. As you get closer to the plant, those levels increase in the water, in the soil, and in the air. And so they're putting our communities and those young people at risk. And some are saying that a young child who lives in that area for 2 years is getting a lifetime exposure in 2 years of those chemicals. So they're increased risk of cancer as well in that population.
Well, without politicizing the recent news headlines, what is your honest reaction as a medical doctor to this news, giving a Denka petrochemical plant more time to reduce its emissions? The Johns Hopkins study that found that toxic emission levels are much higher than EPA's own estimates.
I'm fearful. I'm very concerned about those folks that live in the community. Some of the individuals in that area aren't unable to move, but some refuse to move because they love where they live. That's their community, and they want to fight to make things better for themselves, their children, and the other generations to come.
So what can these individuals do that live in Cancer Alley? What can they do to improve their health outcomes given the environment in which they're living?
They're doing it. If you Google Cancer Alley, you will see tons of activists raising awareness, getting the message out, from fighting in New Orleans to going to Congress to try to make changes. But I think it's incumbent upon physicians, the researchers. There's been a great study that came out of Tulane that also supported the data. We have to stay on it and make sure that we continue to raise awareness and raise the alarm. The decision to allow Denka to continue going on, the governor may have his reasons for it, but the medical reasons suggest differently, that we need to be kind of pausing on what they're doing and controlling the emissions that are coming from the chemical plant.
And as a doctor, what can we do to perfect the data collection so that we have a much more accurate picture of what's happening?
It's got to be a marriage between physicians, the tumor registry, and we have to find better ways to collect data and share them with them. There's tons of great research facilities in our community that could help do that as well.
And at the policy level, your thoughts?
Congress has to get involved from the state level on up to the White House. They have to get involved. You're talking about an area that potentially has the highest cancer rates in the country. And again, you talk to the individuals that live there, they'll tell you about the hundreds of folks that have died or have been affected by cancer. This is real, in my opinion, and I think it needs to be addressed.
All right, Dr. Rani, final thoughts before we go?
Praying for those in Cancer Alley, and hopefully we're doing our part here to raise more awareness.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rani Whitfield, aka Hip Hop Doc, our medical expert. Thank you for joining us here on Life Pulse.